The hype train is real with James Wood right now. And of course, forget about AAA. Let's start talking about the major leagues with James Wood. And the big question of today is it time to start talking if James Wood could be on the opening day lineup? I'll tell you after this.
You are Locked On Nationals, your daily Washington Nationals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And thank you all for making Locked On Nats your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. And of course, I'm your host, Ryan Clary. You can catch me over on Twitter at RyanClary11 and as well as the show page at LO_Nationals. For all your latest Nationals news and notes, just make sure to check us out over on Twitter. And of course, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every single day. Make sure to check us out over on YouTube. Just search Locked On Nationals there. Hit that subscriber button. Leave a comment. Leave a like. Whatever you would like to do, it is your duty. Whatever you want to say there. Today, we got a jam-packed show. Later on in the show, we're going to get into Luis Garcia. Andrew Golden of the Washington Post kind of wrote about Luis Garcia and talked with him about how the pressure is on, man. Luis Garcia was once a relatively pretty promising prospect. Not the best in the world, but still that a lot of people kind of saw a lot of talent in, someone who could easily move over to second base. It hasn't really been that seamless, but I can tell you this, as you all probably know, the time is now for Luis Garcia. We'll explain that a little bit later on. Second segment of the show, Juan Soto. Juan freaking Soto made that comment. You all know what we're talking about. We're going to jump into what Juan Soto said, kind of project the future. What could he be saying? We'll discuss that later on here on Locked On Nationals. But let's start off with discussing the big news of the week, the storyline of all storylines right now in spring training for your Washington Nationals. And really, not even just the Washington Nationals, but he's taking Major League Baseball by storm. And that is James Wood. Just hit a third home run in yesterday's contest. It's time, guys. It might be time. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers join today and you'll get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. And let's jump in with discussing James Wood, because as we've said, James Wood has been on fire so far in 2024, down in spring training. Now, the big question here is obviously, will James Wood start off in the major leagues? Will he be on the opening day roster / starting lineup? Because there are holes in the outfield that James Wood could easily pluck in and would probably be one of the Nationals' better hitters from day one. But is now the time? I'm here to tell you it's not. I'm not ready to put James Wood out there right now. Yes, he has been very impressive over the first week of spring training. Yes, he's still a very promising prospect. It has nothing, and I mean nothing, to do with what he has done or with what he hasn't done down in spring training. In fact, he's done it all. He's been the Nationals' best hitter by far so far in spring training. It's clear and obvious. Now, here's the thing, though. That doesn't necessarily mean James Wood is ready right now. Just from the first week of spring training, which, again, ditto, we all know. This is spring training. It's the preseason. Not only is it going to be tough for hitters to get acclimated, it's also tough for pitchers to get acclimated as well. James Wood has been perfectly fine. There has been not a single thing that he has done wrong so far. You should be wildly impressed. In fact, you should be way more impressed with James Wood than any other Nationals prospect sitting here today. But what I keep on going back to is, do you remember Jordan Walker from last year? A top 10 prospect, very similar skill set, a big power hitting guy, someone who was going to be coming up through the ranks of the Cardinal system, a top 10 prospect at one point, a very promising prospect, in fact, who was killing the baseball down in the minors. Last year, similar situation than what James Wood is in right now. He entered last year. We all know James Wood and Jordan Walker, similar skill sets. We've covered that here. Jordan Walker did the exact same thing. He killed the baseball down in spring training, not just for the full week, but for the entirety of spring training. The St. Louis Cardinals, they said, this kid's ready. They gave him the opening day nod. He was your starting right fielder there. He was starting every single day over the first month of April. But as we kind of saw with Jordan Walker, rather, he wasn't necessarily ready. Once you get in those bright lights and you're playing 162 games over the course of a season, it is different, man. Jordan Walker went from AA all the way up into the majors. And then last year, after he struggled a little bit, the power was really all there after he only hit 2 home runs in his first month in his first 20 games. They sent him back down in AAA, figured some things out. He came back up later on in that season and killed the baseball. This is something that I've always kind of knocked the Nationals for in the past. They do this, and it's not just the Nationals, for the record. A lot of teams do this. It's some cases, it is smart to kind of get your feet wet up in the majors, but not to an extent. If I'm the Nationals right now, you got to have your eyes on the future. We can talk about comp picks. You can talk about what that means and getting that extra pick, and maybe Brad Ciolek, who's going to be running the Nationals draft going forward, see what he can do with that. That's exciting. It absolutely is. But when you have an asset that's already nearly developed with a James Wood, why ruin that? Just for a comp pick to get that for next year's draft? It is a nice thing to have. Of course, you want that. But the main goal right now is to fully develop James Wood. And I'm here to tell you right now, last year, while it was very impressive, he still struck out way more than what was probably anticipated. Is it all right to strike out if you're James Wood because of the power that he has and all the other skill sets that he brings to the table? Of course it is. But not at a nearly 40% clip. You still got to have your eyes on the future here. And that is what the Nationals really have to prioritize going forward. And this is not the most popular take in the world, by the way. If James Wood was on the opening day roster, good. He deserves it. He's been killing the baseball. Is all of this a little bit reactionary? Absolutely. It's been 1 week of baseball. Next week, we can be talking about how he's going 0 for 9, 0 for 12, whatever it may be. You just never really know when it comes to these younger prospects who still need time to develop and kind of saute and work their way up into the majors. I'm not just going to be giving him this big role on opening day and say, this is going to be the guy for years to come. It's going to happen here at some point in 2024. But as of right now, your eyes still have to be on what's going forward. And James Wood is going to be a centerpiece to your Nationals, hopefully future playoff team within the next few seasons. He's going to be that guy. He's going to be that guy to hit in C.J. Abrams and have him score a ton of runs. Hopefully he's going to be that guy to help Dylan Cruz get some runs in. And Dylan Cruz and James Wood is going to be the next great back-to-back combo, hopefully in Nationals history. That's a little bit of a stretch, but you'll see what happens. The thing is with James Wood, I'm not here saying that he's not ready. Obviously, the kid's got talent. He's got potential. He's one of the top prospects in all of baseball for a reason. The kid's really talented. He's got a lot of power. He could probably enter this lineup at opening day and be the second biggest power bat by far on this Nationals roster behind Joey Gallo. And then maybe someday he's going to have the power of Joey Gallo at this point. Maybe. James Wood is a great prospect. It's going to happen eventually this season. But the Nationals and what they do, I'm not going to rush them. And you can bring up Juan Soto and say, well, they brought up Juan Soto for just a handful of games in AA, threw him up in the majors, and look what he did. You could have said that was premature then. You're right. But that 2018 Nationals team, early on in May, that was a different team. And also, Juan Soto was Juan Soto. Major League Baseball didn't recognize Juan Soto at that point, the way that Nationals fans were touting him. We all saw the numbers down there. You saw what he was doing at every single level. He was killing the ball. But what I can't have is have James Wood just go out there and, maybe not perform that well, lose some confidence. I'm not saying that would happen. I'm not saying that will happen. But it could, and it's not worth that risk at this moment. Yes, it would be fun to have James Wood jerseys sell on an opening day. Yes, he's the big sexy name right now down in Florida. But you still have to have your eyes on what's the most important thing, and that is his development. If Davey Martinez and Mike Rizzo, if they think he's ready, so be it. That's going to be the call, and I'll live with it, and that'll be just fine. But I'm not ready to throw him up in the majors at this point. I'm not really worth, I don't think it's worth kind of throwing just to have that draft capital to have him up for 162 games this year. I don't think that's worth it. What's worth it is getting the best out of James Wood. And if you feel that you need to see him in AAA a little bit, maybe down in AA for the first few weeks and then go up to AAA and then maybe quickly moving on up to the big leagues, that might be the better route. But also, if the Nationals do decide to go this route and start James Wood on opening day, I'd be fine with it. But at this moment in time, I'm not really thinking it's the smartest decision for the Nationals moving forward. They need to be patient and continue to develop him, and hopefully you can trust him down the line because, again, James Wood is a huge piece to this future. One of the prominent pieces, probably the most prominent piece in that Juan Soto deal, which we're going to be talking about here coming up shortly. You cannot mess James Wood up. You've done this in the past with other prospects. Luis Garcia, again, another guy that we're going to be talking about later on in the show. Once, not a James Wood prospect, obviously, but there were some promise. A lot of people in the organization liked the makeup of Luis Garcia. He had some good seasons in AAA. You saw him do a lot of good things, but ultimately, it hasn't worked out. And I'm not saying it's because they've plucked him up at the majors a little too early and then sent him back down. But I also think it's part of what has kind of struggled with Luis Garcia a little bit. It's got to hurt the confidence. These are kids after all. This is a 21-year-old James Wood who is out there. He means so much to this Nationals team in the future. I'm not willing to risk the lack of confidence or whatever happens if he were to struggle up in the majors. Now, if he deserves it, if he earns the spot, then so be it. I'll swallow my words. But at this moment in time, pump the brakes. We'll wait. As spring training goes on, if he's batting 500 when it's March 20th, let's talk about it. He'll probably earn an opening day roster spot. Will probably be your starting right fielder or left fielder or set wherever he may be. But at this point in time, let's take it cool. We'll see what happens, but James Wood has been killing the baseball. He's got my attention. James Wood was the promising prospect in return for the Juan Soto trade. I don't know if you saw, Nationals fans, Juan Soto had some very nice, glaring comments about his former team. Not going to lie, if I was a Yankees fan, if I was a Padres fan, I'd be a little upset. We'll discuss that after I tell you guys about our good friends over at FanDuel. And get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. And bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and much, much more. And of course, the Wizards, guys, you got to bet against the Wizards. They've only won 9 games this year. They're playing you-know-who tonight over the weekend. Bet against the Wizards. It's that easy. But when you do that, you go to FanDuel. And when you go to FanDuel, visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. That is FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot, because FanDuel is the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Our beloved Juan Soto made some comments about the Washington Nationals. And guys, grab your tissues. It's a little sad. And if you're a Yankees fan, you should be even sadder. Let's just get right into it here, because Juan Soto, I don't have to explain, should have been an MVP back in 2020 if that season was not cut short. He was robbed of one of the better seasons in Nationals history. And yes, I said it, 2015 Bryce Harper. I think Bryce Harper would have had some company up there for one of the better seasons in Nationals history. Here's a full quote from Juan Soto when asked about the trade from the Nationals. Quote, "I never wanted to leave Washington. It was a great team. I knew everybody there from the bottom all the way to the top. I was really comfortable and it felt like home for me. I was happy. I had a house in Washington. I was really comfortable up there." Quote, "Out of nowhere, they made that decision. They thought it was the best thing for the team. I just respected it because they were really clear with me. That's one of the things I really respected from Rizzo. He was really clear about the trade stuff, but I definitely never thought I was going to leave DC. I was really thinking I was going to stay there for my whole career." After Juan Soto said, "I never wanted to leave Washington." End quote. Number one, again, I would have made that Juan Soto trade right then and there. You get one of the biggest trade packages in MLB history. Mike Rizzo, the Lerner family included, they did not make the wrong decision, in my opinion, as we've kind of seen this tree blossoming right in front of our eyes with this Nationals farm system that has to do a major part in that Juan Soto deal. But also this. That kind of stings. It stings to see that from Juan Soto. Here's the thing. If you're a Yankees fan or even a Padres fan, number one, if you're a Padres fan, you have to feel awful at this moment in time. You didn't get a World Series with him. You didn't get anything. You got an NLCS appearance and you got trounced by the Phillies. That's not good. You gave up the house. You gave up all your top prospects. And yes, AJ Preller is great at rejuvenating that farm system. He has already done it. They already have one of the better farm systems in all of baseball with a bunch of top prospects. Yet again, that's what they do. You know what would have been better, though? Having someone like CJ Abrams, having a Mackenzie Gore, having a James Wood, having a Yarly Tsuzada, coming out of your bullpen eventually in the next 5 years, being a closer, being maybe a starting pitcher at some point. The thing is about this Juan Soto quote that's a little bit just sad. Compared to other superstars, I think Bryce Harper did want to be in Washington for life. He was ready to sign that kind of, hand slap of a deal from this Nationals team back in 2018. Ultimately, he did not because the Nats pulled it off the table, which is pretty jarring considering you signed Patrick Corbin instead of him. As we know, it's all worked out since then. But also with Juan Soto, this one was different. While he didn't win an MVP, he was still just kind of the guy that it was like, okay, Bryce Harper walked out the door. That stinks. Anthony Rendon walks out the door. That really burns. It sucks. You trade away Trey Turner. You trade away Max Scherzer. That sucked. But okay, you're going to extend Juan Soto. That's going to be the guy that you're going to build around. 2022 happens. Right around the All-Star break, the Nationals offer him a record-breaking extension, which, again, I don't care what anyone says, the Lerner family, they did fine with that deal. I don't blame Juan Soto for turning it down. But also, I don't blame the Lerner family for not offering him more. It was the biggest extension in MLB history, which would have been at the total. Yes, the AAV was a little bit messed up, but I don't care. They tried. They wanted to get him here in DC for life. They tried to make it happen. It didn't work out. Then they pulled the plug. They traded him for one of the biggest prospect hauls in MLB history, the biggest prospect haul in MLB history. You will never see a trade like that again. I can promise you that. But also, it just sucks because this was going to be the guy. Again, going back to all the guys that we have lost, all the guys that you have seen walk out the doors going to Philly, whether it's going to LA, whether it's going to San Diego with Juan Soto. It sucks. And none of those guys. Max Scherzer is in that conversation. He is a surefire Hall of Famer, first ballot, one of the better pitchers of this generation that you will see, one of the most dominant athletes you will ever see take the mound. But this is Juan Soto, man, making these comments as a New York Yankee, heading into free agency. And also, that's the other thing. Heading into free agency. Juan Soto, I never wanted to leave Washington. Does he have some sort of feelings towards Washington? Maybe some ill will? I'm sure he does probably on the inside, but as you know, Juan Soto is a professional. He's not your typical younger 20 superstar. He's different in every step of the way. Every step. On the field, the way he carries himself, the way he has matured in such a quick fashion that you just never see from guys who have a superstar kind of talent the way that Juan Soto does. But going forward, you can't help but just think, number one, damn, that's sad. Number two, Juan Soto, a free agent after this year? I'm not going to say it. But the New York Yankees, they could be in trouble. If they don't sign Juan Soto to an extension, I'm telling you right now, it's not going to be pretty up in New York. And if they don't win a World Series and you lose Juan Soto, what are you doing? Because sitting here right now, Juan Soto saying this as a Yankee, it's got to be tough. I don't care what anyone says. I don't care what my old roommate Dylan says. You know he's a Yankees fan. He's been on this show. I don't care what he says. What Juan Soto is going to do, he's going to hit bombs in New York. He's going to raise his price tag come free agency. But as of right now, one good thing is, and I'm not going to say it, he's likely not going to sign an extension, or not an extension. He's not likely going to sign here, if we're just being honest. But he did say, I never wanted to leave Washington. He loves Davey Martinez. He's got a ton of respect for Mike Rizzo, who's still at the helm here. Those two guys are still in place. He got some prospects for him. You got a nice little bright future brewing here in Washington, D.C. Juan Soto, come back, man. I'm not going to say no to it. Thank you all for making Locked On Nats your first listen every single day. And of course, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. And now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. Next, let's get into Andrew Golden's story of the Washington Post. As we all know this, the time is now for Luis Garcia. He understands that, but what will happen? Because there's going to be some pressure put on the kid. He hasn't gotten a hit so far in spring training, and it just has not looked pretty for number 2, Luis Garcia. So let's talk about him after this. Now we're back into it with Luis Garcia as, listen, the time is now for Luis Garcia. He knows that. David Martinez knows that. Mike Rizzo knows that. Everyone knows that. You know it, and I know it too. The time is now. Luis Garcia's got promise. If he were to go into this year and have a decent season, maybe like a 102 OPS plus, have some decent numbers, maybe his power steps up, his plate discipline is improved, his defense is improved, then yeah, we could be talking about something. But I'm going to say this right now. This is not the flashiest name, but the number 2 or one of the top picks last year's Rule 5 MLB draft. Jeez. Nasim Nunez, he's going to be coming for Luis Garcia's job. And Davey Martinez has even said it prior to spring training. Luis Garcia is not in pen to start on opening day. He's not. Does he have more talent than Nasim Nunez? Possibly. But as we saw last year, the Nationals, they prioritized defense. They did. They moved Luis Garcia over to second base. He was a better defender, but still not all that great defensively over at second. You get Dominic Smith to play over at first base. He helped save a ton of errors from C.J. Abrams, from Candelario, from Luis Garcia as well. The Nationals, if they were to prioritize defense over offense at second base, it really would not surprise me at all, even if it was a prospect like a Trey Lipscomb, as we've talked about plenty of times over the course of this season. It would not surprise me to see Trey Lipscomb come up in May and be your national second baseman. It would not surprise me one bit. It wouldn't surprise me one bit if Nasim Nunez was your starting second baseman here on opening day. Because the thing is, with Luis Garcia, you can make mistakes. It happens. You're a young player. And the Nationals, again, this is something I've always believed in. They've kind of put Luis Garcia in a tough situation, having him go up from the majors, down in AAA, up and down, and doing this every single year from what it feels like. But going forward, the time has to come for him. He's got to be able to prove himself at some point in time. Because if we're really going at it right now, Nasim Nunez is so good and so smooth defensively. He could be your shortstop, your backup shortstop, day one. He's playing shortstop. He's a good defender. Move him over to second base. As we've seen, it's been a pretty smooth transition. He's going to be pushing Luis Garcia. And again, don't sleep on Trey Lipscomb as well. There's other guys. Darren Baker could make that move over to second base. In the Nationals, they've tried him around at different spots, but there's going to be spots. And Luis Garcia, nothing is going to be given to this kid. Unfortunately, he's got the talent to hit. He's the better hitter than Nasim Nunez. But at this point, not by all too much. The numbers may indicate that because Nasim Nunez, the numbers aren't pretty for him either offensively. But one thing stands clear. He is a much better defender. And as the Nationals saw this last year, they prioritized their defense. You saw a much improved, better pitching staff. You saw better results. You really saw more wins as well. The offense was pretty stagnant. We all saw that. Not much improvement on the offensive side of things. The power still wasn't there. The slugging wasn't there for up the MLB par. The MLB batting average, yeah, it was above average. It was solid, but that doesn't win in 2024. Just doesn't. You got to have good defense. And if the Nationals, with all these young pitchers, with Cade Cavalli coming back from Tommy John at some point this later since on in spring, early on in the summer, with Mackenzie Gore, Josiah Gray coming in the fold, Jake Irvin as well, the Nationals, they're going to prioritize some defense at some point. And if Luis Garcia, if we're still having preparation issues with and kind of questioning what he can be, I would not be surprised to see him lose this job and not be your Nationals opening day second baseman. Now, again, he's got the talent. He can turn things around. We'll just have to see if he can do that when it's all said and done. Thank you all for making Locked On Nats your first listen every single day. I'll catch you guys on Monday. So I'll be in West Palm Beach. You're going to have all the spring training coverage right here on Locked On Nationals. Make sure to hit that subscriber button over on YouTube. Give us a thumbs up. Leave a comment if you like it. If you hate it, whatever you want, it is all yours. I will catch you guys from West Palm Beach on Monday. Maybe have some interviews, different dialogue with players, see some live action. And if you're there, let me know. Hit me up on Twitter at RyanCleary11. We can meet up over at the stadium. It's going to be a fun one. And of course, I'll catch you guys on the flip side. If you made it this far, hopefully I see you at West Palm Beach. And if not, you'll be enjoying some good coverage right here on Locked On Nationals moving forward. Catch you on the flip side.